are waiting for U.S. President Joe Biden to arrive. We're expecting that to happen quite shortly. He is one of the few who will be arriving in his own vehicle. Many of the world leaders had been asked to congregate at a certain point and get on buses to attend and arrive at the funeral. As you can imagine, the extraordinary logistics of this sort of an event are really unprecedented. And I'll just finish by saying, Aaron, we are now seeing another fairly sizable motorcade arriving, pulling up behind me to the 13th century Westminster Abbey. This appears to be U.S. President Joe Biden arriving at Westminster Abbey for the Queen's funeral. Aaron.
And as we watch that arrival, Clarissa, seeing that obviously right across from where we are, President Joe Biden arriving. Of course, he was the one who said he would be attending this funeral before anyone else, before his own staff even knew he would say it. I'm here now with Christiana Amanpour, Richard Quest, and of course our chief White House correspondent, Caitlin Collins. Caitlin, he did go out early and say, of course I will be there, because this meant so much to him, and his meetings and relationship with her meant so much to him.
And I think he also really wanted to honor what he finds most endearing about her, which is her commitment to public service. And it's interesting that he is the final U.S. president really closing the chapter on this relationship, the one here at her funeral, because, of course, she met during her reign 13 sitting U.S. presidents, 14 in total, and President Biden has had this interesting relationship with her. He is this very proud Irish American, and when he first met the Queen back in 1982, as you see President Biden and First Lady Joe Biden walking up the steps there, you know, he recalls in his memoir that his mother told him not to bow to the Queen. And for that to come full circle to yesterday, where he's signing this condolence book, he's paying his respects to her, and he's talking about what he admired most about her, which he said was her dignity and the way she made other people feel, was a really notable moment, I thought, for this president. Just given she is someone who, you know, she ruled for almost as long as he's been alive. And he talked about how when he met her, there are very few people you meet as U.S. president, he said, and the ones that stand out are the ones who live up to their reputations. And he said that she lived up to her reputation.
It is incredible. And Christiana, as you know, you hear Caitlin give that context, which is so important, about how he feels. To see them today, it is, he of course was born before she was queen, and yet there they are, and this moment does mean so much to him. And of course he is there with Joe Biden, as you see.
Indeed, and of course, the most important international relationship Britain has is with the United States. The transatlantic relationship is huge, otherwise known as the special relationship. And the Queen is considered to have been a big part of forging that. No, she's not an elected leader, but it actually has taken a senior American commentator to point out that yes, she's a queen, but she has conferred legitimacy on the process of this constitutional monarchy mixed up with elected government. Unlike some of the other leaders who are not invited. For instance, you note that President Biden, was born just before she became king, a few years before, but she was also on the throne when Stalin was in power in the Soviet Union. Right. And we know that Russia is not invited because of what's going on right now. And the difference is between the two nations that this Queen presided over a population and a commonwealth and an era of conferred legitimacy. And that's a really important thing that people and leaders need to be able to rule. And her own son, King Charles, in his very first speech to the people, praised her for not just a life well lived, as he said, but a promise with destiny kept. Yeah. And it's an important one, as the President said, President Biden, her complete and utter devotion to public service, which she first outlined when she was 21 years old. Whether my life be short or long, I promise to you that it will be devoted to your service. And that is exactly what happened.
Exactly, until the 2 days before she died, that last photo with the new Prime Minister of the UK. Richard, as we see President Biden, the U.S. President, entering here, Westminster Abbey, what are we seeing in terms of the protocol? This is obviously very carefully orchestrated.
We're now an hour away from the start of the service, and this is the hour when, if you will, the most important mourners and congregants arrive, including the President of the United States. They're being escorted by vergers and members of the chapel and the chapter of Westminster to their various seats. And where they sit, of course, depends on, in a sense, how important you are. But in terms of world leaders, you've got to make sure that people are sitting next to people that they can sit next to. That you don't have enemies sitting next to each other. And so there's a hefty dose of protocol in all of this. In addition to which, in the next hour, we will see members of the royal family leave Buckingham Palace. We will see the King leave. And the idea here is that they will all proceed to Westminster Hall, where they will prepare for the procession which will follow. The President now being escorted by senior members of the household military staff to his seat in the Abbey, passing the choir. It will be the choir of the Abbey along with the choir of Westminster.
Yes. Well, it is incredible. Usually 2 or 3 state visits a year. You now have hundreds in one day. When you talk the protocol and the organization, it is absolutely incredible to think about what went into this. When people say, oh, it took over a week. It is incredible that it only took the time that it took. It is unbelievable. Anderson, just to see them actually arrive and to watch this protocol, this is the first time we will ever see a state funeral like this, live broadcast, and to actually all of us around the world to see it, and it could be half the world's population that tune in to watch this.
Yeah, we of course have seen events like this throughout the history of this country, but to see it in our time, to see it for this Queen, is extraordinary. President Biden and the First Lady being ushered now to their seats. I'm here with Max Foster and Kate Williams. So some of the people entering in front of the president, you were saying, are people who have been awarded the Victoria Cross, which is the highest of British military honors.
Yeah, so I think the president arrived a little late, but the order is staying as it was. So war heroes, winners of the major military honours, were walking down the aisle. He joined the back of that procession, and now we're seeing the beginning of various processions that will walk down the aisle.
And let's talk about just what lies ahead for viewers who are watching around the world. The royal procession will actually leave from the Palace of Westminster, where the Queen has been lying in state, to Westminster Abbey. That probably, when does that start to happen?
So that'll be just before the top of the hour. It'll arrive just around the corner there. At the moment, we're seeing the heads of state seated, and then we're seeing senior clergy seated, and then the members of the royal family walking in the procession will arrive at Westminster Hall. So they will arrive at past with the coffin. The coffin will be obviously brought in at the end, and there'll be various bearer parties as well. The gun carriage carrying the late Queen will also have a wreath of flowers, which the King has chosen. We can talk about that when we see that. And the coffin will, just before the top of the hour, go down the aisle, and that will be the beginning of this service, which the Palace is very keen to emphasise, that this is a service for the Queen's remarkable reign and lifetime of service as head of state, nation, and Commonwealth. And this is the first of 3 parts really today. This is the international part, then you'll have the royal part, I'd call it, the service in Windsor, and then the family part, which is a private burial at the end of the day.
We're going to see a number of regiments from the British military during this procession, bringing the Queen's body to Westminster Abbey. It was important for the Queen to have this service at Westminster.
Yes, Westminster Abbey. This is the first funeral for a monarch that we've seen since 1760, and the Queen. She's had so many wonderful times here. She was married here in 1947, that great post-war wedding. She was crowned here in 1953, where it currently holds 2,000 people, and for the coronation they got in 8,200, so they really got an extra people. And really, all these people here today commemorating
President Biden,
the 70 years of the Queen's reign. She vowed when she was just 21 to dedicate her